You do. All right, what's up, fellas? Welcome to Extermination Radio, the show where we talk about Doom and all kinds of mapping and cool stuff. And today I'm here with Impie.
Hey, what's up, guys? Hello, Internet.
Just before the show, you were telling me about you do some writing for. You were doing some like localization writing for Resident Evil.
Yeah, well, not professional, certainly, but it was something I was doing as kind of a fun writing project for the end of last month. And basically, the original Resident Evil is notorious for its terrible voice acting, but it doesn't get quite as much credit for its equally awful localization. People listening at home, if you're not familiar with localization, although gaming culture these days, they probably are. But just in case, for one or two of you who don't know, when you translate the dialogue from a game imported, say, from Japan, you then are supposed to localize it so that it actually makes sense in the new language.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times they'll just literally, at least certainly they used to do this a lot. And I think this is where a lot of English comes from, is they'll translate, but they won't localize it. So they'll just translate literally, and you end up with this nonsensical garbage like "a winner is you," you know.
Yeah.
Obviously, that localizes.
All your base art belong to us.
You're a winner. You're the winner, or you win, or whatever. But they don't bother, so it's just this weirdness, you know. And the original Resident Evil's dialogue was just nothing but that, you know. It's like half the dialogue made almost no sense whatsoever. Even if it was just the context, like I was telling you the example of Chris meeting Rebecca for the first time in his story arc. He walks into the room, she maces him in the face thinking that he's a zombie. And his reaction to getting maced in the face at point blank is, "Whoa, what is it?" In Japanese, he would have said, "Nanda," or something like that, which generally would mean "what the," you know, as an exclamation.
Right.
But if you translate it literally, it probably literally just means "what is it," you know. And they didn't bother localizing it into a line that makes sense. So, and that's what I did when I was going through and rewriting all of the dialogue and punching it up and making it make more sense, giving the characters a bit more character, because even when it made sense, it was so bland it was unbearable.
Yeah.
So I think I had him like mostly screaming at that point when she sprayed him. I was like, "Ah, son of a bitch! Ah! Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
That's cool, man. You do a lot of writing. I because like what I know most about you is you have I saw your post on like the Creative Works forums, and you have these novellas about Doom, and you wrote a story about Doom. I guess the one I noticed most recently was your Plutonian Experiment one, which I've actually been dying to read. Is it like available for people to download, or what is it?
They're free PDFs online on my site, Mike'sToyBox.net. You just go to the Doom Fiction tab, and they're all right there, and you can download them and read them later.
Oh, what's your website?
If you can read them on a mobile device, if you can read PDFs on a mobile device, you can just download them onto that and take them wherever.
Oh, cool. What's your website?
And there's Mike'sToyBox.net.
Oh, okay. All right, cool.
That's all work.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out.
I can give you a link in the talkie thing if I can bring it up. Well, I'll send it to you after the podcast. You can put it if you want.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wrote those. God, it feels like the better part of a decade ago.
Was it really that long ago?
Yeah, it was a long time ago, and I had wanted to do kind of like a writing project to relax between my serious projects, and I ended up kind of getting carried away. And what I ended up doing was writing a trilogy of short novels that were based on the storyline of the original Doom, the first 3 episodes. So each episode got its own novella that was centered around it, and each novella had a different, more or less nameless protagonist that was running around dealing with this stuff. And it was hard getting all 3 of them to work really well on their own, because like the first one's easiest because it's based on the original Doom storyline. This Marine who's shipped off to Mars to be kind of swept under the rug because of some controversy, and he ends up working this boring ass security job and he makes friends with all these other Marines who've been given kind of the same treatment. And then something weird happens on Phobos, so they fly up there to help contain it, not really understanding what it is, and he listens to his buddies get killed on the radio, and then he's the last one left, and he's got to find a way to escape. And what I was doing with those was I wanted to focus more on the horror aspect which wasn't really focused on a lot, like especially in Doom fan fiction. Fan fiction is like a game facts walkthrough. You know, there's nothing to it. So I didn't want to do that, and I didn't want to make it like a space opera like the official Doom novels, which I haven't read yet, but the first one at least, I listened to these guys on I Don't Even Own a Television podcast. I think that's what it's called. I don't even have a television. One of the two. Yeah, they'll do these fun little activities where they all agree on a book to read, and then they meet up after they've read it, and they do the podcast, and they'll talk about their favorite bits, what they thought were the worst passages. They'll do a dramatic reading of their favorite parts. You know, it's a really fun podcast, and they did that with the first Doom novel, and it was hilarious listening to these guys. Because first of all, I had never heard any of the actual or read any of the actual narrative from these books, and I swear it's just one step below the Doom comic as far as insanity goes. It sounds nuts.
Yeah, it is pretty wild.
Some of the stuff they were reading was ridiculous.
Yeah, I read it myself. I read the first book, and I have all 4 novels because somebody was selling them on Doom World, and I managed to contact him first and bought them off of him. I forget who I bought it off of, but I have all 4 novels, and I haven't gotten to the 4th one, but I read up to the 3rd one. I'm like halfway into it, and I can't deal with it anymore. It gets the story gets like so wacky by the time you get to the 3rd novel.
Second book, they like the world is saved by this community of Mormons or something.
Yes,
and Arlene has something against the Mormons because they converted her brother, and I don't know.
It's so.
I mean, it sounds like it'd be interesting to read. It's just pretty out there.
Yeah, it's something to read, but it's like it has very little to do with like what you would expect Doom to be about.
Apparently the first book has a running gag where he keeps saying he's a born lever puller.
Yeah, the first book's pretty awesome though, because it's
oh man, I'm in tears just thinking about that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it is kind of like how you describe. It's a little bit kind of like a game facts walkthrough, because there are as you're reading the book, as you go through like chapters and stuff, he starts describing parts of like the Doom levels, and you'll like recognize him. He'll talk specifically about like the computer terminal in E1M1, like that big thing that the 3 zombies are in, and like
and I'm guilty of that too, because I guess you kind of have to if you base it on the classic stuff, just to have a little fun with the locations and kind of try to find a way to explain why the layouts were so abstract.
Yeah, so like what's going on in like the first book is that the main character Flint Haggart is kind of like he knows he's alone, but he has kind of like a love interest with this girl Arlene, and he's not sure if she's alive, so he goes through like the first episode killing monsters, and like there's a lot of like inner monologue where he's like he's kind of hoping, he's kind of like pining over this girl, and he's not sure if he's gonna find her alive, but like about like 7 or 8 maps in. He starts seeing these like graffiti tags that he thinks Arlene left behind. So he starts following them, and he eventually meets up with her. And then by the time he meets up with her, the whole almost the entire mood of the book shifts, because it's very he sounds very like desperate and like scared he's gonna die for most of the like the first episode. But by the time he meets Arlene in episode 2. They're just shooting monsters and just killing things and making jokes, and it's just like it's all great, and it's just kind of weird because you kind of like lose all that dramatic tension now that he found the girl that he's been looking for this whole time. And then
it sounds like their first book and my first book kind of went along the same vein then, because I hadn't even read the first book. I knew that he had like a lady friend, but I assumed that the two of them were together through the whole thing because I hadn't read it yet. But I did kind of something pretty similar with my first book, where Knee Deep in the Dead, where the first half of the book, his main mission is I gotta find Mad Max. That's sort of his off and on girlfriend who he knows from Mars base. She's a shuttle pilot, and partly because he's worried about her and wants to save her, and partly because probably mostly because she's the shuttle pilot. She's the only one who can get anybody off of that friggin' rock. So he's got to find her and take her back to the shuttle because she's the only one who knows how to fly it.
Oh, okay.
So about the first half of the book, he's looking for her, and sometimes he comes into radio contact with her. And but a lot of it is it's more about like the psychological effects of what he's going through, because it's written in a journal style like Dracula.
That's
so
good.
He's going through and he's describing his experiences, and he starts to get a little more and more unhinged with each new demonic threat he meets. Like each time he thinks he's seen the worst of it, and then he's fine, and it's fine. I'm fine with it. I'm fine. Really, I'm fine. And then he sees something else, and he's like, oh my god, what the hell's going on? So he just progressively gets more and more emotionally drained as he goes through, and then he meets Max, and then they kind of go on adventures together, and then more terrible shit happens. And then the immediate problem I was faced with writing the second one was how do I keep the horror aspect going when I've already introduced, like it's like the demon invasion isn't really a new thing anymore, and if it's only really effective if it's like the person's first time experiencing this. So that's the first thing I did was I changed protagonists. So I focus on a different guy. I don't focus on the same guy.
That's a good idea.
Because by this point, the guy was like, all right, well, I've seen all there is to see, this, and and then I have to figure out how to make it scary. So I changed to a new protagonist, and I started doing that with each book to kind of keep it fresh. And I also said it during the it's like we see what happened before, during, and after the Demos invasion, which happened before the Phobos invasion in Knee Deep. So we kind of see that there were some people still alive on the station when it got sucked into hell, and they were not having good times. And I ended up working in some human antagonists as well. Like there's some people, like the main character in the second book is referred to as the Hacker, and he runs into this rather large pseudo community of survivors in the Demos Chapel. So they're holed up in this closed up chapel, which is basically like a small fortress, and they've kind of the security chief who's guarding them and protecting them, quote unquote, has kind of lost his mind and kind of turned them into a little doomsday cult, and they've been praying constantly to God to try and get him to answer their prayers and dispel Satan's hordes, because he thinks that humanity's being punished for all these centuries and stuff. And the Hacker's trying to convince him, no, that's not what's going on here. This is grounded in reality, and we got to do something about it. And he can't. He's struggling with him, and there's other stuff going on. There's of course I have the Cyber Demon in there at some point, and he was pretty fun. So that ends up going about as badly as you would expect for the characters. And then the third book, then I was faced with the same problem. Like, how do I up the ante from there? Because like at this point, we've had 2 invasions. Humanity in general knows what's going on. How do I keep this scary? I think I managed it, but I also had a lot of fun with that. I think Inferno is my favorite of the 3 because in the first 2, you're mostly following a lone protagonist who occasionally runs into people who then have bad things happen to them. So like all of his friends are pretty temporary in the first 2 books. In the third book, it focuses on a Marine and science team who all have experience going into hell and dealing with demons. So this is nothing new to them. And they have to go into hell and basically follow the plot line of the Plutonia experiment megawad, where the quantum accelerator was stolen by the demons. They have to go in and retrieve it. So instead of following one guy around, you're following the audio logs of an entire group who know each other and play off of each other. And you get to see the group dynamic kind of falling apart as the story progresses. And that was a lot of fun. So I think of the 3, that one's my favorite because it's a consistent cast of characters that are slowly falling apart instead of just one guy.
Wow, listening to you talk about this story that you're writing is really inspiring, because I actually had kind of a story, kind of like a Doom story that I was working on that was kind of a parody of Doom, where it was the whole series of Doom told through the perspective of the Spider Mastermind.
Just checking the monitor. Oh god damn it! He's killed everybody again. Somebody quarantine that before he gets. No, don't fight him. Call for backup.
Yeah, well, that's what happened. I started this series, and I started it from Doom 2, Map 6, The Crusher, and I only wrote one of them, and I feel stupid that I haven't gotten to the rest of them because it's a really funny, great idea to start with, and the whole plot of the first one that I wrote is he's kind of like he's kind of like having a flashback about what it was like to fight the Doom Marine back on Disk, and and he was expecting to like he had like his whole army ready for him, and he was all like they were building his robot legs, and installing his chain gun. He was talking about all that, and he was all ready to kill the Doom guy. And as soon as he meets the Doom guy just runs up to his face, puts the BFG right into him, blows him away in one hit. And so now he's like ready, and so he's been put back together by the demons, and he's got his new legs assembled, and he's ready to destroy the Space Marine once again. He's waiting at the Crusher, and he's ready to unload on the Space Marine when he gets there, and he can hear the Space Marine killing the Revenants and the Imps and the Shotgun guys that are up there. And by the time the Shotgun guy comes down, he just or by the time the Doom guy comes down, he just slaps the switch and crushes the Spider Master once again.
It's like, damn it, why does this keep happening?
Yeah. So like I haven't gotten to the next one, but like obviously the next one's going to be his fight at Gotcha, where he's expecting to like tag team with the Cyber Demon to destroy him, but the Cyber Demon just destroys him anyway.
Asshole, I'm on your side.
Yeah, so like this, it's just funny because like if you think about it, like almost all the encounters with the Spider Mastermind are just goofy. They're just he just gets his ass kicked all the time, and I think
he really does.
And I think that's like
not unlike Jill in Resident Evil, getting her ass rescued by Barry all the time.
Yeah.
Which I didn't mention that on the air, did I? Where that was the running gag I put in the dialogue.
Yeah.
Where, I noticed Barry keeps rescuing Jill throughout her chapters, so I started working that into the dialogue, and by the end, when she finally confronts Wesker and he's revealed to be the bad guy, he starts making jokes about it. It's like, don't talk tough with me, lady. Barry tells me he's pulling your Bush League ass out of a jam every 10 minutes. You're a damsel in a chic beret.
Yeah, writing's so much fun, man. When I was in high school, I was in a creative writing class, and I got an award in my high school for proficiency in writing, and it was for this narrative story that I had this assignment where I had to write a story that used personification, and that's the literary term for when you take an inanimate object and give it like human-like characteristics. So yeah. I wrote this story about a guy named Bill who he lives in an apartment. And he works at like a regular 9-to-5 job, and every day before he goes to work, he takes a shower, gets dressed, and he cooks a little bit of scrambled eggs, and then he puts a little bit of pepper on his eggs, and then that's what he eats before he leaves for work. And it's kind of a boring story, but I told the story through the perspective of the pepper shaker. So the story is the pepper shaker. The pepper shaker feels like he's very optimistic every morning because he knows that he's going to contribute somehow to society by making Bill's breakfast taste a little bit better, and that's going to put Bill in a good mood, and he's going to make other people's lives better, and that's how the pepper shaker contributes to society. So one day,
that's a cool idea. I like that.
Yeah. So one day, Bill wakes up one morning and he notices the pepper shaker's kind of low. So instead of he's kind of in a rush to get out. So instead of filling it up, he just switches to salt instead. So he puts a little bit of salt on his eggs, and he realizes it tastes great. And the pepper shaker is devastated because this is the one thing he looks forward to every day. And so like a couple of days go by, and every day Bill prepares his eggs in the morning. He's putting salt on his eggs instead of pepper, and the pepper shaker just gets more and more depressed. And one day, Bill is having trouble getting out of bed. He's feeling kind of ill. He's feeling kind of weak. He's not sure what it is. So he makes a doctor's appointment, and he goes to see the doctor. And the doctor asks him, he gives him like a blood test and all kinds of stuff. And he's like, well, what's been going on? What have you changed your diet or something? And he's like, well, I used to put pepper on my eggs all the time, and now I put salt. And he's like, oh, that's probably it. So he gave him a blood test, and he found out his blood pressure was kind of high. And so he tells him that like you got to cut salt out of your diet. So Bill begrudgingly goes home, and he's not ready to switch. And so he makes his scrambled eggs, and he's about to put salt in his eggs, and he's like, you know what, I don't want to die early like my dad did. so he puts the salt down, and he proceeds to eat the eggs without any seasoning, and it sucks. So he reaches over for the pepper shaker, and there's only a tiny bit of pepper left, and he just goes ahead and fills it up, puts the pepper back on his eggs, and the pepper shaker just feels great again. He feels awesome. He thought everything was ruined, that Bill was going to switch to salt, but he's back to pepper again.
You should do a reboot of this where the pepper gets insanely jealous and like serial murders the salt shaker.
Yeah.
Like, you tried to kill my boy.
or like a sequel where like the salt shaker is we're hearing from the salt shaker's perspective, where like the salt shaker's just been sitting there for days and days and days, and he's ready to jump off the counter and smash all over the floor. But then one day, Bill decides to give him a try, and the salt's like, yes, my turn to shine. And then Bill has to immediately switch back to pepper after he finds out he has high blood pressure.
And then Pepper starts talking to Salt Shaker to get it more and more depressed, to push it to suicide, and then eventually jumps off the table.
Yeah.
Yes!
Just these really malicious seasonings that want to kill each other. What a ridiculous story. But yeah, it's writing's so much fun. It's such like an underrated thing, and I feel like there's not a whole lot of writing going on in Doom, and I guess it's because there's only like 3
There's not really a whole lot of lore to Doom. When they started giving it more lore in like Doom 3, they got like the biggest hack sci-fi writer ever to do it, I guess.
Yeah.
Because it was the most stereotypical mad scientist end of the world ploy, and even the original Doom story was more interesting than that.
Yeah, it was really corny. The original Doom story, there isn't really a whole lot to go off with that either, though, is there? There's like there's the game manual, and then there's like the 3 story interludes.
Most of the actual story is really in the game manual, and that's part of what inspired me to write the stories that I was doing in the first place, because I really liked the idea and the setting behind the original Doom storyline. Even though there was only a few paragraphs, it was like a 2-page story. I still thought it was kind of fascinating that this guy would be sent to Mars to be swept under the rug because he assaulted a superior officer because he didn't want to fire on unarmed civilians. Clearly, there was some sort of controversy surrounding that, and they wanted it swept under the rug to save the Corps' reputation. So they sent the one guy to Alaska in a body cast, and they sent the Doom Marine guy to Mars to work boring security jobs. And it's dull, but it's a living. And then there's weird experiments going on on the 2 moons regarding teleportation, and then something weird starts going on, and then they lose contact. Deimos vanishes, and then they lose contact with Phobos, so he ends up getting put on the team to go out there and check it out. And he listens to his buddies get killed one by one on the radio over the course of hours.
Yeah.
And the whole setup is really cool, and I wanted to flesh it out and dramatize it a little more.
Yeah.
And that's where it started. And what really pushed me to actually sit down and do it was there was a guy, I can't remember who in Doom World did this, but years ago, before I started writing these, he posted a little snippet of what a Quake. It was like a Quake short story, a Quake 1, and it was told in first person from the Quake Marine guy's perspective. And it was really, he spoke like a really grizzled, seasoned Marine, Space Marine guy, as he was describing what was going on. And I thought, this could work. So I sat down and I just did it. And I was kind of thinking about doing another 1 or 2 as part of my New Year's resolution, since I have so many months left in the year for writing projects. I might try another one and see if I still can make it. I want to say see if I still got it, but honestly, I don't know how well received the original stories were to begin with. I remember a lot of people had nice things to say about them at the time, but
well, I haven't checked them out. I'd be interested in reading them.
My writing is actually on what people in the community feel that a Doom book should be. It's as far as I know, it's just as bad as the Doom novels. Well, I've had people tell me otherwise, but I mean, it's like a handful of people will really bother commentating on the stuff I do, and the rest just kind of go about their day. So I have no idea if it's because it's bad or if people just don't really have anything to say, but they think it's good. I don't know.
Well, from what you're telling me, it sounds like you put a lot of thought into it, and you have a lot of great ideas.
I tried to work the in-game story into each one as well.
Yeah.
So there's Shores was the toughest because there was so little to the story in
Yeah.
that, other than he finds out Deimos is in hell itself, so he descends into hell to find a way home. And that's really the extent of the story in the second episode. So I really had to reach to figure out, all right, well, what would the story be here? And it's like chronicling what happened in Deimos Space when it was taken seemed like the most obvious choice. Not involving before the Doom Marine even got there.
Yeah.
Because I think that's honestly a kind of an upsetting thought that when the base was taken into hell, there were still people living in it.
Yeah, Deimos is kind of a weird thing because I know it's like when I've talked with some people about it, like especially when we're working on like Doom the way it did, about like what their opinion about Deimos is, and like it's got like it's got like a pretty interesting concept in the way that it's like these UAC bases, but there's also like these very like dominant like hell influences that kind of like integrate themselves within. Like when you go into like E2M2 containment area, there's that whole like
/ hell tech kind of meshing that it's hell sort of swallowing it and converting it to its own likeness, that sort of thing. The motif of the second episode.
Right. It's kind of a weird thing, and it's almost kind of like an excuse for Sandy Peterson's kind of like weird texturing choices when he was like getting into mapping for the first time. But at the same time, it's also like a very interesting concept, like to just kind of like imagine like in E2M2 containment area, there's like this, it's just like this warehouse with like a castle that's like erupting from the inside.
Yeah, that's I ended up actually funny you bring that up, because when I first wrote Shores, it was shorter and not as action packed, and it was the weakest one of the three. So I went back and I did an extended revision of it where I added a bunch more stuff, and I made sure that was something about episode 2 that really stood out in my mind, was that area that you're talking about. So I had a whole action sequence just in that area specifically, where he's like, I don't understand this. It's like I'm in the middle of a UAC warehouse and there's a green Gothic castle just springing out of the middle of it.
Yeah.
And he goes in and he gets chased all over it by like imps and stuff. And the only reason he survives is because he like creates infighting among them, because they're disorganized animals basically, and he gets the hell out of there.
Yeah, it's a wacky concept.
That was the biggest complaint I had about Shores, was like, there wasn't a whole lot of action going on in there. So I went back in, and in putting in more action sequences, I ended up coming up with the whole Doomsday Cult aspect, and that ended up being like the middle section of the book.
That's cool.
So that helped a lot, and I think the book's a lot better, and it's the most epic of the three plots because of its scope, because of how long a time it takes place and how many people are involved and how much goes on. There's more than one narrator in that. It's not just like the bulk of the story is told through the hacker's perspective, but there's another narrator who comes in and like for the last stretch of the book.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
So it kind of changes things up a little bit. It gives you someone else's perspective.
Yeah,
and I think what ended up happening was you basically have three narrators in that book, and you ended up with different depths of perspective of what's actually going on in Deimos. Because like the first narrator is the lady in charge of Deimos Base, and she's writing during the actual invasion, and just like it ends with like the invasions of the base and demons showing up, and then it just kind of cuts off, and then the hacker takes over, and he's talking about like all right, well, something definitely is wrong, so we got to get back to Mars, And then the third guy has been kind of blending in with the possessed humans and like pretending to be a possessed human so that he can like get the information he needs to send back to Earth to tell them what's going on. So it's like 3 different layers of the Deimos invasion throughout the course of the book.
That's pretty awesome.
That last narrator was a lot of fun to write, because I like the situation I put him in, and
yeah, it's a good approach to have like the kind of like interpersonal relationships between more characters. When I think of Deimos, I don't think of it as being very action packed anyway. It's more like mysterious. It's a very strange, otherworldly kind of place, and so I don't really I can't even think of like any like really intense traps that happen in episode 2. But
I think you brought an interesting point about the texture choices too. Because I think there is kind of, I hate to say it, but I think there is kind of a difference between Shore's style level designs versus like Sandy Peterson slapping up whatever random textures came to mind. It's like you can see the difference. Like there's a big difference between like the warehouse castle area level we were talking about.
Yeah.
And spawning vats. Spawning vats
Yes.
just has really terrible texture use. It's completely random. What is the name of E2M2? I'm trying to remember. Is that containment area?
Yeah.
Yeah. Containment area seems more deliberate. It's like there's distinct areas that are still UAC based, and there are distinct areas that are very much hell.
Yeah.
And you can tell where one ends and the other begins. And spawning vats is just a bunch of random stuff everywhere.
Yeah, I wonder if like containment area was like one of Sandy Peterson's like first maps, and then they were like, oh yeah, keep doing that, and then so he just went to like spawning. So he just took Tom Hall's like spawning vats, and they're like, oh, just put some hell textures in here.
Maybe
and that'll work.
What's funny is the first time I ever played Doom was actually on the Super Nintendo.
Oh yeah.
In like 1995, that was my first exposure to the game. Like I'd seen it around, but I was kind of afraid to touch it because I was sort of a conservative kid when I was really young. But I started to grow out of it, and Doom was one of those early attempts at like reaching out to different things and like getting out of my comfort zone. And I ended up loving it because I had recurring nightmares as a kid, and the game reminded me of those recurring nightmares.
Whoa.
So I was playing it constantly. And I ended up playing the PC version like years later, and the Super Nintendo version has a lot of cases where the texture choices are better than in the original version.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't go. It's not like very zany.
Demos Anomaly. You remember that giant inverted cross area?
Yeah.
And it's just the texture on that is just like the ugly red metal texture. In the Super Nintendo version, it's the glowing red Hell Rock, and it looks so much cooler.
Ooh, that's pretty cool.
And in some cases too, where like even 32X Doom, it's like spawning vats is in that, and it's not a great port, but and I swear they have like 7 textures in the entire thing.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember seeing screenshots of it.
In some cases, minimalism is what you need, and minimalist texture choice really made spawning vats look a lot better. Like it's said that it looks better on the 32X than it does in the original PC version because there's less texture. There are fewer textures to choose from, so they give it a more consistent motif. It seems more like a kind of hell base.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was I've only played I didn't play much of 32X Doom or SNES Doom, but I do have
we didn't have much choice. We didn't know how computers worked, so.
Oh, okay. I had Game Boy Advance Doom, and that is based on the 32X or the Jaguar part of Doom, which is I think it's the same as 32X or something like that. I'm not really sure about all the details, but
if I remember right, most of the console ports of Doom were basically the same game until PlayStation Doom came out.
Yeah, right.
And even PlayStation Doom, the levels were still basically bare bones, no detail whatsoever. But they had the new lighting effects and the new soundtrack that made it more atmospheric, and that was a big inspiration for the things I wrote too, because I was going more for the horror atmosphere, psychological aspect of what was going on than just a game facts walkthrough. Yeah,
right. Yeah, I remember that the textures being like a little more consistent through the original the console port version of Doom.
And, because it has many to choose from.
Yeah, but
honestly, a lot of the textures that they had in the original game were not that pleasant to look at either. I remember that green brick one that just had the demon face randomly stapled onto it.
Oh yeah, what was that?
It looked like literally just like somebody's cardboard Halloween mask just hung up on the wall all over the place.
Yeah.
I'm glad they got rid of that one. Then there's some textures that they got rid of that I thought were really cool. They got rid of a lot of great base textures, and the Baron of Hell texture, the disemboweled, tortured main.
Yeah, I love that one.
Well, they got rid of that for some reason.
Yeah, that was such a cool texture. I wonder why I don't know. It's a very weird thing. Yeah, tell me about Project Einhorn. I haven't played it, but I saw a little bit of it.
Yeah, first of all, picking the title was a pain in the ass, and I always regret sticking with Project Einhorn, even though it's distinct. Nobody knows how to pronounce it because it's a weird Norse word, but I believe it's pronounced Einhorn.
Okay.
And I only know that from playing a lot of Age of Mythology back in the early 2000s, because that's how they pronounce it. So that's how I'm saying it. But yeah, like I didn't have a good title for it other than that, so I just went with that. And I thought, if nothing else, it'll be really hard to like do a Google search and not find it. which is a problem I've had with a lot of projects. Like most of the projects I'll come, it's like, oh, this is a good title. And it turns out, no, it's not a good title. This is hard to find on Google search. All this other crap keeps coming up. and then finally I picked Project Einar and it's like, okay, this is good. It's distinct. I find out there's another Doom mod called like Einar.
Oh my God, why? How did someone...
I can't win, man. There's just no way for me to win. I can't get a break.
It's so unique. How did
Yeah, so that one's more like Norse. It's like actual Norse mythology. You know, like I think you're playing an actual Einar and you're fighting Vikings and
oh wow,
giants and stuff. And I don't know if it's still in production, but it's on the Zdoom forums if you just look up Einar.
Oh wow.
I read it because spelling that, even I use the damn word all the time, and I sometimes have trouble spelling it. I do this to myself. No, but so Project Einar came from I've been writing a book series and a dystopian adventure series called Winter Agent Juno.
Okay.
And it's a very anime as fuck title, I know. But and honestly, the setting seems a little anime too. Now I think about it, because it's like the cast is mostly female. Except I at least have an explanation for it. It's not just like a lot of anime where it's like, oh, all the characters are female because fan service, because marketability.
Yeah, right.
I had like a practical reason for it. It's like,
okay,
after World War III, this crazy like third wave feminist lady in charge of this political party happened to also be the only one with the foresight to come up with really good ideas to prepare for the inevitable nuclear holocaust. So she's the one who kind of saved humanity. So everyone kind of does what she says. And one of the things she did was she blames men for the fact that nuclear war happened. So she put these really strict regimens in place where it's like men 15 and older have to do these aptitude tests, or else they just go into the military service, or they get locked up in the Valhalla camps, which is essentially like glorified kennels, where they're used as labor and breeding stock and stuff like that. And women do everything else. So essentially this country called Midgard is like a giant ant colony where women are running everything and the men are only brought out when they're needed. And there's a bunch of other nations in the same setting who aren't too crazy about each other, and they're especially not crazy about Midgard because of the civil rights violations going on there. Needless to say. And Juno lives in Midgard, and she's a former soldier and guerrilla who's retired because of her eye injury. That's the eye patch. And the first book that I wrote with this character in that setting was The Helios Legacy. And I've finished, and I'm still polishing the second book now, Kingdom of Famine. I can actually, since you were nice enough to have me on here, I thought if you read ebooks, I can send you like an electronic copy if you want.
Yeah, I'd love to see it.
See what you think. Because I think it's a little more accessible than the first book, because the first book has a lot of world building and it's a much slower pace, whereas this one's a little more centralized. It's all, there's like one villain faction, it takes place in one setting, and the plot's a little more straightforward. But yeah, essentially they're dystopian adventure stories with a little bit of Western elements and inspiration from Westerns and men's adventure fiction from like the 70s and 80s. So the settings are very gritty. The characters are gritty. The villains are always very despicable. If they aren't yet, they inevitably cross that line where that's the point of no return. They'll do something so despicable that you can't ever okay, you're not redeemable anymore. You're straight up bad guy, you know?
Yeah.
Or they begin the story already having crossed that line. But yeah, so I made Project Einar as a promotional gimmick. Because when you're writing books and you're publishing them or self-publishing them, you got to come up with ways to promote the book, and your promotional gimmicks are limited only by your imagination. So I thought one fun way to promote the book would be to make an interactive game set in the same setting where you play as that character.
Wow!
And each episode, so it's Project Einar is 5 episodes. Each episode has its own little backstory in the PDF that comes with it. That's like a short story, kind of setting the stage for the story of that episode. And every map or two, you'll see a text screen kind of furthering the story, which is really difficult to do because there's only so much space you have with those things. So a lot of those tend to just kind of push the story forward a little bit, but there's not a whole lot there. Most of the story is in the backstory in the PDF for each episode.
Right.
And that's part of the gimmick too, is like each story for each episode was like an original short story made just for the mod. So that's part of like the bonus package, I guess. Is like, hey, you get some extra reading material, But then the funny thing is, whatever projects you do parallel to the main project, all the derivatives that you make to help promote or that you do just for fun, like you just make a video game based on your book just for the hell of it, whether or not you use it for promotion, they tend to feed off of each other.
Yeah.
So I wrote the book, and then I was going to make it as a comic originally, and it just wasn't working out, so I just wrote it as this adventure novel. And then I had made a few video game projects in that same setting before I wrote the book. So in writing the comic and short stories and the book and making these video games, all of these projects fed off of each other, and it was kind of like this big cauldron that I was stirring, full of ramen noodles and celery and chicken, whatever you want to throw in there, and they were all kind of concocting and blending together, boiling together into this final, like, refined project. So I was fleshing out the world with each new project I did. And Project Einar is no exception. I'd come out with the first book, and then I was doing Project Einar, and I started coming up with ideas I didn't think of for the original book. So I started writing more stories, and I'm at the point now where I'm taking the stories for each of those episodes and trying to write books out of those.
Wow.
So the core story of Project Einar involves. Well, I'm basing a book on it, but for people listening who aren't familiar with Project Einar, the basic story is in that setting with the crazy matriarchal lady and nuclear war. It's set during nuclear winter, so it's snowing all the time. There's no sun. This lady, Juno, is in charge of the Valhalla of the capital, so she looks after all the boys in the capital city.
Is that who you are in the mod? You're Juno?
Yeah, you play as Juno in the mod. She's the warden of the capital Valhalla. So she's like a very, very low-ranking Valkyrie officer, and a former army guerrilla who was in charge of this really notorious guerrilla unit known for sneaking into enemy camps and making them into ghost towns. So she's really dangerous. Which explains why she's the Doom player character.
Right.
You run around and kill armies of people without breaking a sweat because she's that hardcore. So there was this lady, Dr. Gall, who was like the matron lady's personal physician, who, for her sterling service as a personal physician of the country's dictator, she was given domain over her hometown, which she's renamed Gallheim because she's an egotistical psychopath. And she's sort of like a big, burly female Dr. Mengele, and one of her big personal projects was to try and rid the male species of homosexuality because, again, she's a psycho asshole. So she would conduct these eugenics experiments to try and get rid of that gene, quote unquote.
Ooh.
And she wanted Juno to filter out all of her homosexual males and transfer them to her facility so she could experiment on them. But since the previous matron died and she no longer has political sway she used to, Juno could just tell her to piss right off. She ends up winning the favor of the new matron, and so now she gets the new matron to twist Juno's arm, saying, "Hey, give her what she wants, or you're going to be transferred to a really terrible place." She's like, "All right, fine." So she doesn't want to do it, but she delivers the boys, and she meets Dr. Gall, who, of course, is as pleasant as you would expect, and she meets her chief of the local police, Ruthless Ruth Bowie, who's a character in her own. She's a lot of fun.
Ruthless Ruth.
Yeah, and she also has a reputation for being a nasty military person. So she wants to be friends with Juno, but Juno's like, "No, I don't like you either. You're crazy." And she drops the boys off, and then she gets the hell out of there. And then one of the boys escapes, one that she has kind of a close friendship with, and tells her, "Hey, there's something going. She's doing something to us in there. You got to get us out of there." And then they come and arrest him and take him back. So then Juno goes home. She can't do anything about it. She'd be going up against the entire army. So she goes back home, she tells her superior about it, and her superior is like, "Well, so it seems that this Project Einar thing, where she's taking these boys and turning them into cyborg soldiers, the old matron canceled this project, and the new matron doesn't want it. And she's clearly like trying to start a coup and take over the government using this cyborg soldier project that has basically been banned. So we're kind of within our rights to get rid of this bitch. And there's a blizzard coming soon that's going to engulf her hometown. And during the blizzard, it's basically a whiteout, and nobody knows what goes on in there until the blizzard passes. So you could go back there and take care of this mess for us discreetly. And by the time it's over, and they wouldn't be able to do anything about it other than like install a new governor. They wouldn't be able to call for help. So they'd basically be locked in there with you alone, and you could do whatever you want. And, I won't charge you with anything. So basically get the permission to go assassinate Dr. Gall and shut down the Signeyard project. So that's the story of the first episode of the mod. And then every episode after that is about somebody salvaging what's left of the Signeyard project and using it for their own purposes, and then Juno having to stop them. So there's like five episodes of that. Wow. And that's sort of what the next book is going to be about. It's like after the second book comes out, the third book is going to be based on what I wrote for the mod, involving that and Juno. Most of that would be in flashback, and Juno would have to like stop a new incarnation of the project. Except the cyborgs are going to be a little different in the book. They're more like cyber drones, and because the sci-fi aspects of the actual books are very much in the background and they're not that advanced. So those are some differences between the books and the mods. Like the mod is very much action and sci-fi heavy, whereas the books it's a little more muted and it's more like a dystopian western. But I want to put some more, make it a little more action packed in later installments too. So
that's pretty awesome. So Juno's like this badass rogue bitch, and she's surrounded by a bunch of assholes who just want to keep reinstating this Project Ironheart project to create cyborgs out of people.
Yeah, it's somehow or another she keeps getting pulled into it. Like sometimes her superior will just be like, "Hey, there's another mess going on. Why don't you go take care of it?" Why? Because I said so, and I'm like right beneath the lady who's right beneath the dictator of the country, and you have to do what I tell you. All right, fine. I'll go clean it up again. And sometimes she just happens across somebody who's doing something bad. Like the fourth episode, she has a chance meeting with a lady running this kind of cult community in the mountains who turns out to be Dr. Gall's daughter, Contessa.
Oh man!
So then she has to deal with the son of Frankenstein, essentially.
Yeah. Oh man, do you find that like that writing kind of like helps carry your projects when you're mapping for them?
It does. It does in a way.
Or do you think it's like the other way around? Do you think like making the project actually helps you write?
Well, like I said, they feed off of each other. So like sometimes I wouldn't get anywhere with the story if I hadn't had the game project, and vice versa. Sometimes like I don't know where the game project's going unless I have a plot. And I had someone play the fifth episode and tell me they really liked the fifth episode because they felt like they were really involved in the actual plot of that episode because of how I structured it. So
that's great, man.
I guess sometimes it works.
Yeah, I've never really associated any kind of like story with the projects that I've made for Doom, and now I'm like thinking maybe I should do that in order to like kind of motivate me to work on it more often. Because I usually go with kind of like just the standard. It's a continuation of Doom, and that's pretty much all there is to it. It's just you with the shotgun, and there's monsters, and go kill them and get to the exit.
Yeah, I tend to keep it pretty story light most of the time. Like with Strange Eons and Nerves of Steel, I had the intro story and the manual like old school, and then at the end of an episode, I have a text crawl. And that was basically it for that. All the rest of it was purely gameplay. With Project Einiyar, I was doing something a little different because it was a promotional tool for a book, and I wanted to involve the universe and the characters in the story in that as well. And there have been, at different points in the community's history, there have been projects like that. Like there was like a 94, 95 mod that I'm trying to remember the name of. It's on I think it's in the top 100 mods of all time list. Where you would read the story in the text file, and then there would be a stopping point, and then you go play the next map, and then when you finish that map, you come back and read the next part of the story.
Oh.
Yeah, and people listening at home will know what I'm talking about, and I just can't remember the name of it. I have it on my hard drive somewhere.
Yeah. So I guess
it's on that list.
You have a pretty strong appreciation for WADs that have like a pretty strong narrative associated with them. Have you ever?
If they're done well,
yeah.
Like a lot of people who play with like making Doom maps aren't necessarily story writers, so they might have some decent ideas for the story, but it rambles a lot, or it doesn't read very well.
Yeah, or it's just like super generic.
Or they rely on really terrible Z-Doom cutscenes, which are also badly written. God, I hate those. But then you have cases like Unloved, which I have a love-hate relationship with. Unloved has a great atmosphere and some really great ideas and settings, but then there's a lot of really cheap or like slobber knocker battles that just rely on you just force you to rely on luck and spamming save states to get through, which is bullshit and really kind of spoils the experience. But the storytelling aspect of that doesn't even rely on words at all. It's all visual. So like all the visuals and in the player character's house and in the progression through all these different locales and where the ending eventually takes you, it tells a story without actually giving you text. It's all done very visually and using the level design. And I think that was the most brilliant part of the mod.
Yeah, I have a strong appreciation for stuff like that.
It's really difficult to do too because it's very subtle.
Yeah, exactly. It's very subtle. Like even just like tiny little cues can either mean like a whole lot, or sometimes the player will just gloss right over them and just like fly right past them and completely not notice them at all. So it is like really tricky to do. Or
they'll crank postmodernism to 11 and just read way too much into it.
Yeah, I was watching Evolution of the WoD recently by with Captain Clever and Tarnsman and Rock King and who else was there? Kaiser and someone else was Matt Tropiano. And they were playing hub-based levels, and some of the ones they played were TNT's Daedalus, which was like a sequel to Icarus, and apparently that has like a pretty strong plot to it. But they also played Taitenga.
Daedalus is the one you keep getting contacted by someone on the radio headpiece as you're going through this big space station.
I think so.
Because I know I played something like that. I want to say that's Daedalus, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
And I have played the old Taitenga you're talking about.
The old Taitenga.
Revolutionary Z-Doom mod or whatever it was.
Yes, yeah, that's what they mentioned specifically. It was like revolutionary for the time, but it was like ridiculous because like the entire time you're playing, you're just getting these text messages from somebody who's like communicating to you through like radio transmission, and it's just like this boring dialogue. And pretty much no gameplay. You're just like running around trying to figure out what to do in this map, and you're just reading this text, and it's just like, oh my god, when is this over?
Is the final fight in that with the main bad dude? I'm wondering if it's screwy for me, or if you were intended to fight this guy while he's submerged in a river.
Yeah, I think he I guess like he can accidentally fall into the river or something. But yeah, that is a very weird setup.
Okay, yeah, because I've never seen it work out any other way, so I don't know if it was intentional that you can't see this guy because he's under the fucking river, or if it's like modern source ports, it doesn't work right and you have to play it vanilla or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's been a long time since I played it, but I remember that happening for me too. And maybe it's just an accident.
I know if you play classic Batman Doom on a modern source port, all kinds of funky shit happens. Yeah. Mostly the Joker doesn't work right.
Yeah. What does the Joker do in Batman Doom? I can't remember.
He was a two-parter. So like he'd start off I think he'd start off throwing darts at you, and then when you killed his first form, he would turn into a second Joker who would shoot you with like an Archvile blast or something like that.
Oh, right. Okay.
But if you play the old version in a modern source port, the first version dies and doesn't drop the second version, so he just kind of vanishes and you can't beat the level.
Oh no. That's a shame. That's a shame when really cool like old WoDs aren't compatible with new stuff. Yeah. But I understand it too.
They're doing that revised version, I think they just released the final version. I don't know, but so they revamped it, and Batman's black instead of blue, and it works on modern source ports.
Oh, who's they? Is it just people? But
there's some little things I remember I wasn't crazy about, like maybe it's just me. You never know. It might just be my computer not handling things well. It's like I remember playing through it, and like whenever I punched a guy, it didn't make any noise. So, which doesn't have any punch, as it were.
Yeah. So who's they? Is it just people from Z-Doom? They just kind of like picked it up and dusted it off?
I think it's just I think they posted on mod database. I'm not sure. I don't remember who's actually revamping it. It might be the original team.
Oh, okay. That's pretty cool.
But I doubt it. I don't know.
That would be pretty amazing if it was. It's such a cool project.
That actually reminds me. I used to do a playlist on YouTube called Doom Mod Salad, where I would, because I made a habit of playing a lot of different Doom Mod mixtures just to change things up and see what would happen.
Yeah.
And so I started doing a YouTube playlist where I would find some really interesting or fun or wacky combinations and take a video of it and upload it. And sometimes it would be something like, hey, this is a really fun combination. Like, I really love playing the Ultimate Torment and Torture with Project MSX. That's a really great combination.
Oh, yeah?
You just blaze through that shit, and it's a blast. The only downside to it is that at the end of the second episode, the boss doesn't work. But
okay.
as far as I can tell, everything else works normally.
That's cool.
And sometimes it's just really weird stuff. Like I took Project Slipgate and combined it with Chex Quest. So it was like this hardcore. It was this hardcore Quake setting and sounds and music, but it was like Chex Quest.
That's what
I was like, it's extreme Chex Quest, guys. Get with the time. It's 2016 or whatever. It didn't really work, but I thought it was kind of a funny idea.
Is there?
I also found that one of the earliest Doom TCs ever was the Hellraiser TC, which was kind of a horrible mess. And I took that and mixed that with Project Slipgate, and it worked really well because it kind of seemed like a Cenobite setting.
Ooh, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so that was a good combination.
That's pretty cool.
I can't remember a lot of the others. Obviously, I would take the really good Mario Doom mod on weapon and enemy mod on Mod Database, and I would I think it was Mod Database where I got it. It might not be. And I would mix it with whatever Mario level sets I could find. And we have that Mayhem 17 on the Doomworld forums right now, where the theme is Super Mario Brothers texture sets.
That's right. That looks really cool. I've been seeing screenshots for that.
And when you take that Mario mod and add it to it, so that it really completes everything. It was like I can't play those maps without that because it really completes it perfectly. Because you're playing as Mario with like Nintendo-based weapons, and it's got the enemies are all Koopa Troopas and Lakitu and stuff like that, and it's perfect.
That sounds perfect. It's really cool.
I think I have a video of my map on there using that mod. I can't remember. It might be on the playlist. But yeah, I haven't put much on there lately. And sometimes I'll find really obscure Doom mods and put them up there, like that. What was it? Little White Mouse made that Gunsmith Cats TC that was like really short.
Yeah.
I took a video of that and put it up there because I don't know that many people really know about it or remember it.
Is there such a thing as a Brutal Chex Quest yet?
Brutal Doom does work with Chex Quest, actually.
But does it create
you don't
blood,
use the
or is it create
you're still Doom guy. But the Chex Quest enemies will just explode violently into green globs. It's pretty awesome.
Really? That sounds hilarious. That's pretty amazing. Yeah, I was wondering about that because like if you made like a Brutal Chex Quest, I guess you would just put green slime on everything.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, it is compatible. You would be playing as Doom guy, but you would be splattering the shit out of the Chex Quest guys, and the gore is green, so it's pretty funny.
Silly. You had another project too before Project Einherjar. Einherjar. I'll pronounce it eventually. But you had a project prior to that too, right? I forget what it's called though. You'll have to remind me.
I had a lot of projects before that.
Oh really? Like what?
Well, the first megawatt that I released was Strange Eons, which was also 5 episodes.
That's yours? I didn't know that. I didn't know that was yours.
Yeah, that's mine. Yeah, that was the H.P. Lovecraft themed Doom partial conversion, more or less based on the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, I remember hearing good reviews about that, and I saw videos of it too. It looked really cool.
It's still pretty fun, I think. It's more old school Doom. Like, I mean, I make the kind of stuff that I would want to play, which is what everybody should be doing.
Yes.
Like, don't pander to what everyone else wants. Just like whatever kind of game or maps or thing that you enjoy, you should do that. Because you're at the end of the day, you might be the only one who's getting entertainment out of it, so you may as well enjoy it. So my maps tend to be kind of low detail because I'm very old school. I'm just like, I think the best IWAD map set is still the original Doom or the Ultimate Doom. Because I still like that design aesthetic best. I found the Doom 2 and Final Doom maps to not be terribly interesting, with a few exceptions. I just didn't really enjoy them as much. Classic Doom, they just went all out with being abstract, and I don't know, I just really loved it. So everything I do is more in style with like the Ultimate Doom, if anything.
Yeah.
Right down to like enemies that you can drop in 1 or 2 shots, but who can really fuck up your day if you're careless, which is kind of what the original Doom lineup was. Like they're all pretty easily killed, but if you get careless around them, they'll fuck you up.
Yeah.
And that's what I try to do with all of my mods, especially Project Einerjar. Like even the bosses in Project Einerjar only take a couple of rockets to kill, but man, they will ruin your shit if you give them an inch.
Yeah, that's good, man. Yeah, I like the that kind of like old school style too, because it's almost like you're kind of, when you're playing a map that's like very low detail, it's kind of like a blank canvas that you're kind of filling in the detail with your imagination, and it can look as cool as you want.
I like it to have a little detail, like not so low detail that it's like, there's nothing here. This may as well. It's like right. Wolfenstein 3D has more furnishing than this.
Yeah.
But not like Z-Doom levels of like over detail and such.
Right. Yeah, because there's a point where it doesn't really. I mean, if you put that much detail in it, I mean, I do detail my maps pretty heavily, and I tend to get carried away with it sometimes too. But I do really enjoy playing like that kind of old school style, because you kind of you fill in the details with your imagination. It can look exactly as interesting as you want it to look, just from you as the player. And you don't
not only that, the biggest thing is none of my computers have dedicated graphics cards, so detail heavy levels tend to lag like crazy on my computer.
Oh yeah,
with modern source ports. Yeah, so and I'm not the only one. It's like there's not everyone's going to be able to play super detailed, super ultra extra bonus featured maps.
That's true.
Like there's a lot of people who are like me where their computers can't handle it. They're not really computer guys. So that's another reason I do it, is to just keep it accessible. It's like make as many people be able to play these as possible.
That's smart too, because if I mean, let's face it, if we're playing Doom, not everybody's going to have a pro gaming PC. So, yeah. I mean, I just got one recently. It's not that recently. It was about a year ago. But my brother gave me his quote unquote old computer, which was he's like he competes in like Team Fortress 2 tournaments and stuff. So he needs like the top of the line stuff, so that he has the monitor with the highest refresh rate, and he has like a super pro mouse and a mechanical keyboard and all kinds of shit. He
keeps Doritos and Mountain Dew on hand at all times.
Yeah, he's got a cup holder next to it and everything. Yeah, all kinds of stuff.
He's got a horn.
Yeah. Yeah. So he gave me his as a gift, because he was building his own computer. So he gave me his old one as a gift, and it's amazing compared to what I was using, because actually what I had before that was a Windows XP machine. Yeah, it was just like it was just like your average computer you might have in like an office building back in like 1999. And
somebody gave me a computer that could just run Left 4 Dead 2 without shitting the bed. I would be like, "You're throwing this away? Why did you do this?"
Yeah,
yes,
it was really wild.
Take this off your hands.
Yeah, and I was using this computer for a long time, my shitty one, but my Windows XP one, but it ran Doom perfectly. So I really didn't have any reason to upgrade, because that's pretty much all I do anymore is play Doom and like read the Doom forums and like make maps and stuff. I don't really have any other reason for my computer anymore. So I just kind of I dropped off the grid
really
as far as games
old archives that are still online and dig up old forgotten WADs.
Yeah. I've downloaded the entire id Games archive, and I'm kind of like making a point to like play through everything, but I don't think I ever will in my entire lifetime. There's just too much stuff.
A lot of it you don't really want to. You're not missing anything. Like there's a lot of really low rated stuff on id Games for a reason.
Yeah,
but there's some
that's
stuff
true.
that doesn't have very great ratings. It's honestly not too bad.
Yeah, that's very true. Yeah, I run into that a lot. I see some things that get like pretty terrible reviews, but I enjoy them a lot. And,
actually, I got excited. Speaking of digging up old WADs, I discovered there was a Shores of Hell like 2-level set called Rip It, Tear It, Smash It that I really liked. I can't remember the name of who made it. There's 2 really good Shores styled maps.
Yeah.
For Ultimate Doom, and I just found out he released this episode map pack called Monument, where he took all of his Shores of Hell style maps, including those 2 maps, and put them together into a full episode. And I got really excited about that because now I can play through like 9 maps worth of this stuff by the same guy. So and I haven't played all the way through it yet. My computer keeps doing weird stuff that unrelated to Doom. So one of these days, though, I'm gonna get through the whole thing, and I'm gonna love the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Because I love those 2 maps that he did. They're really great. They're very Doom 1 style.
Yeah. What I like to do is I actually wrote this batch script, and I actually don't really know much about programming or anything at all. So it took me like a long time to write, but I was reading through like these pages that like teach you how to write batch scripts and stuff. So I found out that PR Boom will spit out a if you there's like a command line argument where it'll spit out a text document that tells you how many monsters and how many secrets you found and all that stuff. And I found a way to make it so that I made a batch script where it'll lift the number of monsters that I killed in that map, and it'll add it to a total. So every time I play a Doom map and I complete it, it'll spit out that text file, get the number of monsters I killed, and add it to a total, so I can keep track of how many monsters I've killed throughout all the WODs I've ever played ever. And I started it about like 2 years ago, and I haven't been playing Doom as much anymore. But over like a year, I've accrued like 18, like 100, I think like 180,000 monsters.
Jeez.
Yeah. But some of that is like from playing like Speed of Doom and like playing through like Twilight Massacre and like BFGing everything. There's like 10,000 monsters on that map, so.
Jeez, yeah. I can't. The big hardcore maps I can never do well at all. I just don't think they're fun.
It takes a lot of practice, and
yeah, and I think the gameplay style I still love the most is just OG Doom, where it's like it's a good balance of lots of fighting, navigating mazes, figuring out where to go and what to do. The adventure as a whole through hell, rather than just like running around BFGing hordes of monsters and having to get like armies and armies of these guys to start infighting or else I don't survive. Having to spam save states and having to do it over and over and over like I'm playing I Want to Be the Guy.
Yeah, I understand what you mean.
I can't get in that. Or slaughter maps too. Like slaughter maps, I just get bored.
Yeah,
and maps that don't have enough action, I get bored too. So I got just this perfect balance, is always what I'm looking for. Otherwise, I just get bored or frustrated with it really quickly.
Yeah, I understand that. My preference overall is Super Shotgun and Rocket Launcher. I'm not. BFG is kind of boring. I do like it in some occasions. Like there's some parts where like a BFG is warranted, but most of the time, like there are like if you see, for example, have you ever seen like videos of like Death Destiny's No Chance.wad? Like that level is unbelievably crazy. I don't even know how to get. I can't stay alive for more than like 30 seconds. And
I'm not sure if I have seen that one.
Yeah, there's some pretty wild stuff.
But yeah, I do like the BFG, and I like any chance that I have to actually use it, because I don't really use it as often as I'd like to. So there are a lot of times where I'll just use it on like a small group of imps or something, just because I don't use it that often, and it's fun to watch them all explode at once.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's,
so I've been trying to use it more lately.
Using them in slaughter maps gives you like kind of a better appreciation for it, because it's because if they give you like tens of thousands of monsters to deal with, you really can't kill them as quickly as you would think so. Like I remember Doom made this argument in and I think Doom 2 the way it did, when he said like Doom 2 introduces the Super Shotgun, but also introduces another new weapon, and that's the BFG. Because in Doom 1 there really isn't many scenarios where you deal with many monsters at once. So you don't really get a full appreciation
for the original Doom 1, you only get it in the third episode.
Yeah.
And in Ultimate Doom, you get it in the third and fourth episodes.
Yeah, and there's only
so there's not a lot of opportunities to get it, let alone use it.
Right, and there's only like a few tiny pinches of areas where you fight like more than 10 monsters at a time, where you actually get an appreciation for it. Because for the longest time, I thought the BFG was just a weapon that just kills everything on the screen at once. And it kind of, in a way, it is kind of like that if all the monsters you're dealing with are imps and zombie men and pinky demons. But when you're playing in like a Slaughterfest map where there's like tens of thousands of revenants, it really does like take a while to chip away at them, and you have to like there's actually like pretty tactical ways of using it and things like that, and you get a stronger appreciation for it for playing in those levels. But it does take a lot of practice, and it's a lot of trial and error, and you kind of have to want to learn it.
I'm trying to find. Okay, yeah, because I think I'm happiest in Doom when I have that good balance, but I can also still get into situations where, as this PC gaming magazine I had put it, get down to like 10% health and all you have left is 2 rockets and a fist, and somehow you can still find a way to come out on top. That I love that more than anything.
Yeah, that like kind of survival aspect of it. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I was playing. I played through I think it was the first Death Tormention for Doom 1. And I hadn't played it before, and I got in a situation where it's like I was in this really inconvenient setup network of halls and rooms in this little corner of the map where I was supposed to get I think it was the yellow key, and I sprung several ambushes in a row without realizing it at first, and then all of a sudden I'm basically closed off by demons, like a bunch of demons and imps and a cacodemon or two. And it's bad times, and I shoot. It's like before the fight barely got started, and I was down to like 2% health, and I'm like, I'm dead. I'm fucking dead. There's no way I'm getting through this. But I'm like, all right, just keep with it, And I get some infighting going, and I'm blasting these things, and I survived it.
Oh man,
I survived like a dozen monsters in close quarters with like 2% health. And I was like, how the fuck did I get out of that?
I love that when those moments happen.
There was a Plutonia style map set. Or I think it was just one really big map. It was Plutonia style, and I used to know the name of it. I can't remember now, but that was like kind of a pain to get through because it's Plutonia style. But I remember at one point there was a fight with a cyber demon in close quarters, and I survived that. And I was like, I didn't know I could do that. I didn't think I was capable of that in Doom. So a lot of moments like that are really my favorite moments when I'm playing the game.
Yeah, I remember when I was like first getting into like playing Doom Megawads and stuff. Scythe 2 is one of the wads that like really like pushed my skill, and it put me in a lot of situations that I really didn't think I would survive, and I came out on top. There was, like you were describing, there are like some parts where you fight a cyber demon in like very close quarters, or like parts where you fight like maybe 60 revenants at once, and you just kind of like pummel at them with a rocket launcher, and you eventually crush them all, and you're like, wow, I've never seen this many dead revenants in a row.
Yeah,
all kinds of like really,
I guess
like
that's what I always look
for
in Doom is a good balance of complat and navigating the mazes and figuring out where to go next and what to do, and just like I guess virtually speaking, a mental and physical challenge overall.
Yeah.
But every once in a while having those situations where it's like it kind of seems hopeless, but it's not quite. Not a situation where like I'm having to spam quick save in order to get through it, or do it again and again and again until I get it just right because I'm just lucky enough.
Yeah.
But situations like there's a lot of situations like what I'm talking about in I think Epic 2, where like it's insane, but you can figure out, okay, I see how I can do this. Okay, I've got this, and then you manage it.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's something I've been working on lately too.
That circular room that has like 100 revenants in it. Where it's like, all right, if I just run past these guys, grab the invulnerability, and then I just BFG the shit out of them. Okay, I'm good.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking about too as a level designer, because I've noticed that over like the last like few years ago, really really difficult maps have been getting really popular, and that
I'm not crazy about.
Yeah, and it seems like
it's like every community project I join, has some really interesting ideas, and they're all troll maps.
Yeah, it's a shame, and I think it's because a lot of people play Doom with the kind of like with the predisposition that we're going to be using saves and stuff anyway. So like they have no limit as far as making it as hard as humanly possible, and I think that's kind of lame, because I usually don't play with saves, but I don't want to complain for that reason. I think it's okay if people play with saves if they want to, but I don't like to play maps with the assumption that it should be okay if you just die randomly for like some crazy trap that you have no idea how to predict. and you can just load and take care and just take over like where you left off. And because I don't play that way, and I want to be able to see a situation happening and use my wit to kind of predict it before it happens. And in a lot of circumstances,
a lot of those mods where it feels like you got by because of luck, not necessarily because of skill or because you were fast enough and spammy enough with the BFG.
Exactly, exactly. There's situations where like I'll be like surrounded by like I don't know like 3 arc vials or something, and I had no idea that was going to happen, and I'll just randomly have my plasma gun out when I need it, and I'll kill the monsters and I'll survive, and I'll be like I didn't even enjoy that. I can't, like the only reason I got through that was because I had my plasma gun out. Because if I had my fucking super shotgun out, this would not happen. And it's just like annoying that happened, that I had to deal with that weird like shock moment where you're just like, oh fuck, and then you just like freak out and you eventually come out on top. And it's in some cases it is like really rewarding, but
yeah,
when
there's a little luck to the situation like I was talking about in Death Tormention, where like there's always a little luck factor involved, but it didn't feel like I relied entirely on luck to get through that.
Right, because
like I was lucky I didn't die outright. But I didn't, and I managed to pull out of the situation and get it back under control, and that was the rewarding part of it. It wasn't like I didn't spam saves at all during that. I had no idea what was going to happen.
Right, but like the situation as you described it...
But it was possible for me to get out of it.
Yeah, the situation as you described it sounded a lot like you kind of like took a dive into a dangerous situation. And then, so like in that way, you had control over it. So like you getting in trouble was kind of your own fault, not the mapper's fault. You know what I mean?
Plus, I was expecting traps. I was not expecting them when they triggered.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I'm gonna see the key and then wait, they're spawning in already? Oh, fuck.
Yeah. Yeah, but I have a strong appreciation.
See cover. Fuck! I just triggered another one.
Yeah, I have a strong appreciation for that when like a level like puts like a shotgun or something in like a very empty room, and you know as soon as you pick up that shotgun, some monster closets are going to open up. So like when you can kind of use like the context clues to expect things, and like that level of prediction and challenge is very exciting for me, because I know that I'm kind of I kind of like, based on what I know about playing Doom, I can kind of apply what I've learned and kind of use that as part of the challenge. But
as a map designer, you use those little warnings, but also sometimes try to find a way to trick the player a little bit.
Like, a little bit.
I think like the situation I was explaining, where like, you know, again, it wasn't an unfair trap. It was perfectly fair, and I got out of it, and
right.
It didn't feel trolly or unfair or anything like that. But it surprised me, because it's like it built up my expectations and then it turned them on their head. So I'm like, oh shit, well now I gotta be extra careful everywhere I go.
Yeah, but like what like that particular situation wasn't that trolly. But like, for example, like I've played more than one map where the mapper just like decides that he needs some traps in this map, so you'll just be like walking down a hallway, and for whatever reason you'll have like 2 Hellbarons like trap you on both sides, and like now you're not sure how to fucking get out of here. And there's no reason you would have expected that a Hellbaron would show up there, because like you were already like, I don't know, you're already like crushing through monsters in there anyway. I don't know, like there usually needs to be like some sort of a hint that would indicate that something that you did triggered this ambush to happen. And
I think there's 2 ways to go about like any sort of trap or ambush in Doom. One is you give a little hint, and if you miss the hint or you ignore it, it's at your own peril.
Yes.
The other being not necessarily a hint, so you can really get the drop on them, but don't make it like an unfair trolley trap that they couldn't predict. You know, like surrounding them on like from 8 directions with Hellbarons at point blank range all of a sudden.
Yeah.
You know, like again, the trap I talked about was perfectly reasonable if scary, because I had room to move. Even in the narrow hallways, I could have potentially dodged around a Pinky if I lured it to one side and then ducked around it. You know, so there would still be some skill required to get out of the situation. It wasn't just like a "fuck you, you're dead" situation.
Yeah.
Felt that way initially, and then I realized, no, I can do this. But
yeah, it's tricky. It's not really easy to find that kind of balance. Especially when you're your own level designer and you know where the traps are before you play it. You really need to kind of depend on like playtesters kind of giving you decent advice or at least decent feedback.
Well, with any creative endeavor at all, you need fresh perspectives to tell you, yeah, this doesn't work, and here's why.
Yeah,
this
absolutely.
does work. Here's why.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, with writing, it's hardest to do with writing because people have to take out time and effort to sit down and read something. Anything else, you could just show it to them, and they're done with it. It's like, hey, check out this map really quick. All right, yeah, sure.
Yeah, and it's just like 5 minutes.
They're done in like 5 minutes. Okay, yeah, this was too hard, or no, this is just right. Listen to a few bars of this new song, or take a look at this comic I just did. It's versus read this short story, a chapter of this novel. It's like they have to find time to do that, and they have to be willing to do it. So it's like, and even when they say they'll do it, you'll probably never hear back from them again.
Yeah, I mean, they'll think about it, and then they'll get distracted with something else that's faster. Yeah, it's a shame that happens, though.
I wonder if back when people had more of an attention span, it wasn't as much a problem, or if it was always like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I get concerned that might never happen. I don't know, because it seems people's attention spans are getting shorter and shorter, and people seem to have less patience for longer and longer maps. And I know that's kind of true for me sometimes. I get bored of longer maps, but it's mostly because I choose not to play with saves. So if I die after spending like 45 minutes on a map and I've already beat like 90% of it, I'm just like, all right, I played the whole map.
You definitely want to use saves occasionally with Project Dynamite, because some of those maps can get a little big.
Yeah.
And like I said, the enemies take no quarter and ask for none. So, I don't think anyone has to necessarily spam saves playing through any of my mods unless they play them on Nightmare. And there's this guy on Twitch who was crazy enough to do that with Project Dynamite. It's like he got through the first episode after like 2 hour-and-a-half long videos because he was playing it on Nightmare. And I think I customized Nightmare mode on that so that the enemies don't respawn, but they get everything else. So they're super fast and extremely aggressive. The dogs and the juggernauts in that are insane. It's like I don't really test Nightmare mode that much because it's really only for masochists.
Yeah.
It's like nobody really takes Nightmare mode seriously. It's just kind of a novelty. But this guy's playing it for real, and my God, I've never in any mod seen any monster move as fast as these monsters do in Project Dynamite on Nightmare mode. Like you blink and they're across the room and they're killing you. It's insane.
I've tried to take Nightmare mode seriously sometimes. I like to. What's fun to do actually is playing on I'm Too Young to Die, but turning on respawn monsters and fast monsters, and that way you get kind of get the free mega armor that way, and double ammo per pickup. So it's a little more, and you get fewer monsters, so it's like a little more manageable most of the time. But but I tried to. One project I did work on, I really tried to give an honest effort at making it work in Nightmare mode. And that's very hard to do because it was very compromising for ultraviolence. But I have thought of like ways that I can make Nightmare mode more palatable. And I think some of the methods that I come up with, I think involve you can use like really large groups of monsters, but you have to have them very spaced out. Because what happens is when the monsters respawn, they respawn from where they're placed on the map. So if you just if the way you place monsters on the map, if you cram like a whole horde of monsters in one spot, you can deal with without like 100 monsters at a time, but they're always respawning from like one designated location. Or a few designated locations, and that way
it turns into a really bad arcade game where as soon as you kill something, it comes right back.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because like when you play like something like Knee Deep in the Dead, there's monsters everywhere, and the only reason that you can really get through it is because most monsters die pretty quickly. Like imps and shotgun guys and zombie men, they all die in like a couple shotgun shots, so like whatever, or one each. It's the pinky demons that take more than one shotgun shot, but yeah, so you can pretty much plow through most of the monsters on Nightmare mode, but you can't really when you're bringing in monsters like in Doom 2, where you have monsters that take longer to kill than they take to respawn.
Yeah, that was something I wasn't crazy about Doom 2. I like that they added new monsters that were really good support monsters, but they all took like a bunch of rockets to kill.
Yeah, very very big damage sponges, and that's a shame.
I can deal with it with Doom. Where I had an issue with monsters taking too many goddamn hits was Heretic. That's why I don't play Heretic very much.
Yeah.
Unless I use some kind of a mod that makes me deal a lot more damage, because it's like even the gargoyles have a chance to take more than one rocket to kill. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Every time you run into a monster in that game, it's a battle of attrition. You have to stop and pump ammo into it until it drops, and then the next enemy you pump ammo into it drops, and it's just tedious as hell.
Yeah.
In Doom, this fight would have been over already. I'd be in the next room.
Yeah, and the worst part is that the monsters don't even look tough. Like in Doom, like the monsters are like these, like Hell Knights are like these big bulky guys, and like Mancubi are just like these huge fatzos that are like you would imagine that they would take a lot of damage. But in like Heretic, you're fighting like skeletons and like rotting corpses and like like that Ophidian, which is like a
tough
snake
enough.
thing.
It's just I don't know if it's the monsters that have too much HP or if the weapons were all super nerfed.
Yeah, it's a combination of both, I guess.
I play Heretic the least of all the Doom engine games just because of that, because it's so tedious to get through even the easiest levels, because it just takes so long to kill everything.
Yeah, it's way more practical to just run past them than it is to actually kill them. Yeah, it's a very Heretic's like a cool game though. Like the concept of it is very interesting, and I like the colors it uses too, the purples and the blues and stuff.
Yeah, it's a very nice looking game, and that's most of the issues I have with Doom engine games. I have more issues with Heretic than any of the others. It's like there's very few textures comparatively in Heretic as well, so the levels all look very samey and dull.
Yeah, it's a weird concept though, because like there was even like on Doom World there was a thread for creating textures for Heretic, and it got pretty much no bites whatsoever, outside of like a few like recolors and stuff. But like, what do you even do?
I would hope it would get a bunch of bites, because Heretic needs more textures.
Yeah, it does, but the question is like, what do you even make? Because Heretic is a very the theme behind it is very kind of static. Like it's all castles and villages and dungeons.
It's very medieval. I mean, it's the same as Hexen, but Hexen had a lot more variety to what they had.
Yeah.
Texture-wise, to help you create something that looked a bit more like a living space.
That's true.
If nothing else, or a library or an office or something, medieval office or something like that. You know, the closest Heretic got was it like map 2 or 3 in the first episode? Kind of looked like a neat medieval town. But,
yeah.
But I don't know. There's really not a lot of memorable stuff in there.
Yeah, there really isn't.
Adding to that the tedious as hell enemies, and that was the only official Doom engine game that was 5 episodes, which is insane.
Yeah, it's true. It had 5 episodes, and I remember by the time I got to like the fourth and 5th episode, I was just like, there's just way too many monsters, and there's just power-ups and health items and all kinds of stuff everywhere, and it's just this big sandbox where you just tediously plow through. Not even plow, just kind of like peck away at all these monsters.
I would laugh reading the wiki articles on Heretic, because it's like read the articles on different episodes and say like, you know, in episode 5, such and such has the motif of like a barren, abandoned, dilapidated city. I'm like, where are you seeing this? Where are you? It's like it describes the different location, like the different motifs and locations and locales of each episode. I'm like, I don't see any of it. I'm sorry.
That's true. I actually noticed that too. I remember reading that.
I see the same 5 textures over and over. That's all I see.
Yeah, I remember that when I read that. I read that too in the wiki articles about like the other episodes of Heretic, and I was like, I don't remember the maps looking like that, like how they describe them.
It can't be in the level structure either, because the level structure is as abstract as classic Doom.
Yeah, it gave it a lot of
5 episodes,
credit
so
for how interesting the maps were, but I don't know. I didn't really see it when I was playing it.
I mean, I want to really like Heretic, because it contributed a lot of cool stuff. Not the least of which was that damn inventory system.
Yeah.
You know, which is always fun, but I don't know.
Yeah, I want to like Heretic too, and I like to it's cool on the Doom wiki when you look up the levels, you can like see the automap view of the levels, and a lot of the levels are actually very, very intelligently designed, like just how they look from the automap. They're just they have like those cool like abstract angles and shapes and stuff, but like when you see the screenshots of the levels, they just look boring, and it's a shame because they look so cool from the automap.
I hate to say it, it makes me think a little of Nerves of Steel, the
I'm not
the
sure I played
terrible DOS game from the 90s that when I made the Doom mod Nerves of Steel, it was a remake of that game because I hated it so much because it was so fucking terrible. But the texture use on the maps in that game kind of almost make me think of Heretic a little bit because I don't know, the textures, there's just not a whole lot to them.
Yeah.
And they don't really look like they kind of look like something, but not really. You know, I mean, Nerves of Steel is easily a worse case than Heretic is like a paradigm of competent map design and texture design and such. You know, easily compared to Nerves of Steel. Nerves of Steel is a fucking nightmare of design and bad artwork, and it's terrible. But there's a little bit of a parallel there where they're just not, the maps just aren't that visually interesting or distinct. One just kind of blends into another, and I don't really think of any distinct locations apart from that town. You know, whereas with Doom or Hexen, I can immediately think of very specific locales on different maps. You know, and in Heretic, I just got nothing.
Did you ever play Tech War?
I've seen videos of it, but I never actually played it.
That's the game where I had a cutscene with William Shatner in it.
Yeah.
I played.
That's funny you bring it up because it's the same. He was doing the same thing as a guy who was writing a series of books at the time, and he used the video game to promote it.
Oh, really? That's what it is.
Yeah,
That's what Tech War is.
Tech War was a ghost-written novel series with
dear God.
William Shatner. William Shatner worked together with some ghostwriter guy because he had this idea for a sci-fi series, and he churned out a whole bunch of books through that setup. And the video game was meant to promote it.
Oh my God, I had no idea.
Oh God, that means Project INR is my Tech War. Oh.
I don't know
how I feel about this.
I played a little bit of Tech War once as a kid. I got it in like this my uncle gave me like this CD for like, it was like 101 freeware games or something, and Tech War was like a shareware thing, and I got to play like the first level of it, and I remember being like really confused by the level design, but the texture usage was really weird. All the textures were like really stretched out, and it was just a very strange game. And
you talk about a good idea and poor execution.
Yeah, exactly.
There's a lot of DOS era shooters that drop the ball, like that one. Just like that's a pretty early example of like, I'm not sure if it actually used a hub system or if the levels were just structured to kind of resemble a hub system. But the idea that you would have this central hub and you'd be going to different like 3D city locations, and you have these non-combat NPCs that you could deal with, and you could shoot or not shoot, and you'd go into buildings and try and find the criminal and such, and you could get in trouble if you point your gun at people and a cop's around. The cop will come after you. You know.
Yeah,
there's a lot of really interesting ideas in Tech War, just really badly executed.
Yeah, it's a shame. I wonder if other games have like really like neat concepts that like just haven't been explored. Because like around the time
I'm sorry, you were saying?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like around the 90s and stuff, there was like a lot of like exploration, just like trying things. You know, like a lot of I guess like people didn't really know. Like as far as like games are today, it seems like a lot of them are kind of following the same tropes, and because they're like kind of following things that work and work well.
The only thing in this world more redundant and copycatty than television is video games.
Yeah,
it's been like that from the beginning when like everybody was making a Pac-Man clone and a Space Invaders clone.
Right.
It's unfortunately at the very heart of video game design is copying what was successful a million times.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the impression I get from like most modern games that I see these days. Because I bought a PS4 just to play the new Doom game, and I haven't found a single game that looks interesting to me outside of Doom.
The difference between now and then is now we have fewer genres to play with.
Yeah,
or at least
very true.
People are playing with fewer genres.
Yeah.
Back then, anything was possible. You just came up with whatever idea you had, and it was totally unique.
Yeah.
And then over time, the genres got more established, and then you'd have all different kinds of genres of games you can make stuff in. And then over time, it got boiled down to first-person shooter, MMORPG, and whatever the indie crowd is doing.
Yeah. Well, I'm thankful that we still have an indie crowd. I'm also thankful that we still have a Doom community too.
I'm just I've always been very happy that the Doom community never went away and is always making new stuff and doing new things, because Doom is still my all-time favorite game, and I think one of the big reasons for that is because there's this endless supply of content.
Yes.
The game never gets old because there's always new levels coming out and new mods to try, and I can keep enjoying the same game for the rest of my life because community won't give up and move on to something else.
Yeah, the Doom Marines of Adventure never ends, man. There's always more monsters to kill. And there's always more places to explore and more keys to find, more exit switches to press. It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right. So, do you want to wrap this up? We've been talking for like an hour and a half.
It's up to you. I got nowhere to be.
Okay. Well, is there any stuff that you wanted to talk about that we didn't really get to cover yet on the show that you can think of?
Well, I mentioned Nerves of Steel, and when I redesigned Nerves of Steel as like a creative exercise and adaptation, and for a while there were a couple of people talking about doing something similar, and I'd kind of like to see more of that.
Oh, okay.
The Doom community. It's like one person was talking about like they like to see a Doom Engine remake of, well, a lot of other really crappy first-person shooters that would be interesting if they were remade and done right.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Somebody mentioned Roz's Revenge, because I'd always contested that Nerves of Steel was the worst first-person shooter of all time. But it's kind of a tie between that and Roz's Revenge, Roz's Revenge, whatever the full title is. And somebody in the Doom community is messing around with a remake of that, I think. But and somebody else wanted Operation Body Count. A couple of people tried to do Operation Body Count, including myself. I can't think of the others, but it would be interesting to see that. It's like just to see a little string of projects where people take really bad first-person shooters from the 90s and remake them.
Yeah, just make them as like
Doom
a Doom
source
PC.
ports and stuff, and just do them the way that maybe they should have been done.
Yeah, that's a very good idea. It's a cool concept. I feel like that was something that might have been kind of popular years ago, because I remember like checking out like Doom Wad Station, and they had like all those TCs and stuff, and like there was like the Doom hosted pages where they had like Ghostbusters Doom and like Twilight Warrior and all that kind of stuff. It seemed like those kind of like concept driven projects were like more popular back then than they are now. But I'd like to see it make a comeback.
I kind of miss seeing those, even though 9 times out of 10 they would end up getting abandoned.
Yeah, I missed that too.
Part of the way through, or before they even got off the ground.
Yeah,
like,
speaking of which,
Hellstorm went on to
Hellstorm, exactly. I was just about to bring that up.
Yeah, that went on to basically become like a resource of monsters at Realm 667.
Yeah.
Because I've seen I don't know how many Doom mods I've seen that use those monsters, and I was like, I remember that from Hellstorm.
Yeah.
It was gonna be in Hellstorm, and it looks better now.
Yeah, it's a real shame, because there's a really awesome projects, and I would definitely love to see those. Kind of like I would love to see Hellstorm actually get picked up and like polished up, dusted off, and actually completed. But just because it's such a fascinating concept just by itself.
Yep. Kind of a mix of blood and doom, I think, is what they were going for.
Yeah.
Impression I got, which I wouldn't complain about.
Yeah, it would have been very cool.
Like, we're talking about favorite first-person shooters. Blood's pretty high on the list too.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, I got to get that, put it on this computer again, because it was on my desktop from GOG. I had all the expansions and stuff, and my motherboard shit the bed.
That's right. I should play it too. Goatlord told me I got to play Blood because that's one of his favorites too.
Have you not played it yet?
I have not. I've seen videos of it, and I've seen some screenshots, and it looks very cool, but I never actually got around to playing it.
Play it on easy or medium first, because that game takes no quarter.
Oh yeah.
Or it gives no quarter and takes none. It's like the simplest enemies in that game will fuck you up.
All right. Well, I want to check out your novels, your novellas. I want to read them, especially Plutonia Experiment sounds awesome.
I'll send you the link to my site, and then you can put it in the description.
Okay. Are there any other writing projects that you're working on that you'd like to promote real quick before we go?
Well, the big ones as far as the Doom community is concerned would be the Doom projects, which I might try to write more of just to keep with my New Year's resolution. some based on Thy Flesh Consumed and Doom 2, and I even had an idea for Evolution.
Okay.
But we'll see. And the Winter Age and Juno book series, I'm almost done with the second book in the series, Kingdom of Famine. I don't have a release date yet, but that should be coming out in a few months, hopefully. I also have this book series called Bishop and Holiday. That's it's like a urban fantasy comedy that I'm going to have another the second book of that series coming out at some point.
Wow.
Those are a little lesser known, little self-published things that nobody really cares about, but they're worth a laugh. And actually, if you're interested in getting into doing some writing projects and stuff, I joined this contest over at the Horror Network wiki thing. I'll send you a link to that too.
Okay.
They're doing a collaboration with the Villains wiki, where the goal is, the point of the contest is you post a comment in the blog for the contest saying I'm in, and they'll assign you a randomly chosen horror villain.
Ooh. And
you have to write a story about that villain at like maximum 1,500 words or something like that. So it's a really short thing, but
oh, good.
So yes, mostly people have been getting slasher characters, but there are a few interesting ones in there. I got Leatherface.
Cool. Cool. I can write short stories. I can cram out 1,000 words like pretty quickly.
I got Leatherface, and I didn't know what else to do with him, so I wrote a Bishop and Holiday short story. So you get to see a little bit of like what I did with this other person's property, and you'll see a little bit of the Bishop and Holiday characters and what they're like. It's very tongue in cheek.
That's cool, man. All right, well, I really appreciate having you on the show, and I
appreciate you inviting me on.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I love talking to you, and I really appreciate that we have someone like you who has such a vivid imagination, like in the community, working on projects and doing your writing stuff. It's very cool.
I do what I can.
Well, you do a lot, and it's great, man.
Well, thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Space Marines, for checking us out. For listening to Extermination Radio. How few there are of you.
And keep dooming.
Yes, keep dooming. Don't stop making maps. Keep killing monsters. Give us more monsters to kill. All kinds of stuff. And so I'll be talking to Dark Nation this Saturday. That'll be a racy subject. But he's a cool guy. But he does a lot of writing and stuff too, and I want to talk to him about some of his writing.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll talk to you again.
See ya.